Welcome into Flag for Discussion, episode 52 for Monday, December 15th. My name is Farbod Merkazi, here as always with Jace Hatfield. Jace, how's it going?
It's going well. We got a nice little cold Sunday here in Chicago. I'm going to guess a little colder here than for you in the Southern California region of the world. We're in the single digits today. I think it's 5 degrees.
I have nothing to argue about temperature because I'm in Southern California, and how I always explain it to people is we don't have seasons. We have 65, 75, 85. Like, we don't have fall, winter, spring, summer. It's 56 degrees currently where I am. Last week was weird. Last week was expecting it to be colder, and then all of a sudden it gets really warm. And then by the evening or the early morning, it's 42 when I'm walking to my car to drive to work. But it has nothing compared to what you guys have to deal with. I will say, if you move out here at some point, you're going to get cold at 52 because I know this sounds ridiculous to everyone who's listening, but California cold is an actual thing because people get soft out here. I lived in New York for a year. We lived in Eugene. It was cold there, and then all of a sudden you come back here, you're like, I'm not going to be cold. I've experienced far worse, and all of a sudden people who deal with that stuff, their bodies have adjusted, and now it's 70 degrees and a little wind in the early morning here or evening. You're like, oh my god, I need a jacket.
Yeah, I remember like freshman year in Eugene, genuinely I never got cold. Like once that whole if I was wearing pants and a light jacket, like a raincoat, or pants and a hoodie, I was warm in the winter. But by senior year, I looked like I do here when it was like 45 degrees out there. So I would say like that 2 to 3, maybe like 3 years is kind of where your body adjusts for better or for worse. Obviously, it's better if you're going from cold to California, but if you were to go from California to cold, that first winter might be pretty brutal.
Yeah, I will say I love stacking layers. If I have to go outside, I don't know. In that 1 year in New York, that was the first time I ever had to wear gloves. Like,
That's crazy.
yeah, no, dude, I'm sorry, it's California. We don't know what snow's like out here.
There's no better memory than as a kid, snow tackle football. Like you wake up on a Saturday and the snow's accumulated to 2 feet in the yard, and you and all the neighbor boys are like, get all your snow pants on, snow clothes. You got like the winter shiesties, you got the gloves on, and you're just like tackling the crap out of each other because it doesn't hurt when you got that much snow. Those are always the good old days. Not doing that too much anymore. Too old for that. I think I would break a bone.
I'll say this: where I live, one of the marketing slogans they stamp on the county I live in is, you can live here and you're an hour drive away from the snow to go skiing, snowboarding, whatever. You're an hour drive away from the desert, and you're an hour drive away from surfing. So whatever activity you like to do, you're an hour drive away. But
That's
none
nice.
of that's like specifically where we are right now. Are you just wearing like a hoodie right now? Is it, or
It's warm in the apartment. Yeah, I just got like a light golf hoodie on. Shout out Hawkshead.
there you go.
Best course in what we call God's country in Southwest Michigan. Hawkshead, shout them out. Good golf out there.
I had one more random question that I feel like has nothing to do with college football, but at least has something to do with what we're talking about. When was your first snow day?
Probably like elementary, like before I remember, kindergarten, preschool. We used to get like 10 to 15 a year growing up, usually. And then if you went over that, then it was like, if you went over like 15, then you had to tack on days at the end of the year. I don't think I ever had to do that though. We were usually around 10 to 15, and I would get them consistently every year, which was always really nice. And then I remember we had one specific snow day where it was like such a crazy storm, and me and some friends were already, probably like 8th grade, were already hanging out at one of my friends' houses, and like the storm happened that night. So all the moms agreed, like, can they sleep over there? It's dangerous to come pick them up. And that mom was like, okay. And that turned into like a 4-day crazy snowstorm. So we ended up like sleeping over and staying at my friend's house for like 4 days. And we were like in 7th or 8th grade. So we must have smelled awful by the end of that. I feel bad. Like, I didn't realize it in the time, but looking back, and I feel bad for his family. That basement must have just smelled like 8th grade boys for a month after we left.
I bet you've never had a fire day, or
I've never had a fire day.
No, well, I mean, granted, luckily we haven't had many of those, but there were days where it's like it's too smoky out.
That's wild.
We can't let the kids outside. Let them stay home. We have earthquake drills in school.
I didn't have those. We were just
Yeah,
tornado drills.
yeah. We never actually we did that once because there was a threat of a tornado coming, and then it just didn't happen. All right. Well, been the geography portion of this podcast. We got a lot to talk about today, and kind of it's just like pertinent news with the Heisman coming out yesterday. Fernando Mendoza winning it. The Michigan search is continuing. Who are they going to hire? We thought we had a little bit of clarity yesterday and the day before, but still have no clue on where they're heading. Who's your 2026 Heisman? Stuff like that. And then I I thought it'd be fun today. Now that the season's over, bowl games have started. Washington beat the crap out of Boise State yesterday. The playoff is not until Friday. So we're going to get into previewing the playoff on our
Yeah.
make sure you are following us on Twitter at F the number 4 discussion, on TikTok at flag the number 4 discussion. We are on YouTube at flag for discussion, spell it out, and on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast at flag for discussion, spelled out. Jace, yesterday at the time of recording, obviously this happened Saturday night for anyone who's listening on Monday morning. Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy over Diego Pavia, Jeremiah Love, Julian Sane. First of all, we can have a conversation about who, if those four deserve to be the only finalists, or who, if someone should have deserved to be ahead of them. That's part of it. I can't stop being a bigger fan of Fernando Mendoza. Like that guy gets it. That guy, and he's not only a great quarterback. He obviously had a special year. I don't think this Heisman Trophy was the Travis Hunter first unprecedented accomplishment. Played a million snaps on both sides of the game, and we have to give it to him. Or it wasn't like Devontae Smith, unbelievable receiving a year, so we had to give it to him. Or it wasn't a Money Manziel type year, but it was a really good year, and his team's undefeated. They just won the conference title game. I think anyone who says that he doesn't deserve it, or I saw on Twitter, was this the worst Heisman ever? That's preposterous. But at the same time, I think there is a case to be made that how did he beat out Diego? How did he beat out Julian Sane? Unfortunately, Jeremiah Love, I don't think he was going to get it. He was going to be able to sniff a shot at it, especially on a multi-loss team.
Yeah, I think Jeremiah Love, I think, deserved to be in the room with them, but I'm okay with him not winning it. And I think he was maybe one more. Yeah, if Notre Dame wins one more or two more games and they make the playoff, he might have a better case. Or if he just has a little bit better stats, he had a slow-ish start to the year too, and I think that might have held him back. I'm not mad at Fernando Mendoza winning. I'm with you. I've seen a lot of people say, this is the worst Heisman ever. Does he deserve this? Jacob Rodriguez was awesome, and he had a great year. You all know how much I love him. Yeah, I think he should have been in New York, and yeah, I think he had a case for himself to be winning it. But it felt like to me this year, like between Pavia and Mendoza, both were great stories. Both had unprecedented years with their teams. Two programs that are traditionally not very good, and they both led them to some of the greatest seasons in school history. Indiana confirmed. Vanderbilt, I might have to do some research, but also probably one of their, if not their best program or season. Both quarterbacks had amazing stats. Both had great years. Both were cool stories. I just think at the end of the day, Fernando Mendoza, I'm okay with the storyline here of saying, their stats were similar, but Mendoza took them to 13-0 and won the Big Ten championship in a game that everyone was kind of, including us, was kind of assuming Ohio State was going to win. And Mendoza won that game. He made big play after big play in all the big moments this season. Against Oregon, he threw a pick six that looks like it might turn the game over, and he came back even stronger. He was not afraid to make throws, and then he ended up leading them to that win, led them to the win against Ohio State. I feel like he deserved it. And I'm with you. Like, he's a really good person. You can tell that it's not fake. It's not phony. It's not for the cameras. You can tell he's a good dude. He cares about the sport. He cares about the game. He cares about his friends, his family. You can just tell he's a good person, and you feel happy to hear him win the Heisman and in the fashion that he did. I'm not upset by it. I'm not mad by it. Is he a world beater? Is he the greatest person I've ever watched? No. But am I happy that he won the Heisman, and am I going to be satisfied with it? Yeah.
Did you watch his post game? Not his post game. That's so natural to me to say. Did you watch his acceptance speech?
I did not watch it live, but I have seen clips on Twitter, like last night and this morning.
Dude, when he addressed his mom, I was like, I'm not a crier, but like that touches at your heartstrings there. Like his speech was really great. And you're right. It's like I think I say this too much about people, but he's a guy that just seemingly gets it. And from his post game interview when he was at Cal after they beat Stanford, and it was like the 98 yards with my boys, or his post game after the Big Ten title game. That guy gets into it with his thoughts, feelings, and how like he doesn't. It's crazy during the game. He doesn't let the moment get too big, and he goes out and performs. You said it. You're spot on. Against Oregon, he threw a pick six that brought the game back to one score. And like Oregon just probably needed to stop, go down the field, tie it up, and then see where it goes from there. Fernando Mendoza threw a pick six, came back, and they went down the field and I think kicked a field goal. So I say that to say like the kid has the ability to be just stoic, poised, and in the moment when he's needed. And he was that all year. But then his post gamers show you a glimpse of why like his teammates love him. And you see, I don't know if you saw the other Twitter clips of his half of his Indiana team was there. That and I've seen
That
people
speaks
cover,
volumes.
yeah, and I've seen people cover the Heisman for years. Say like this has never happened before. Like sometimes guys will bring their offensive line. Sometimes guys will bring like a couple of their friends on the team. Obviously, the head coach is going to be there, but there was a big group of Indiana players at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And yeah, that, like you said, that speaks volumes to the guy he is. He's only been there for 1 year.
Yeah.
And it's not like, for what it's worth, it's not like this is a group that hadn't experienced success before him. It's not like he's their savior. Last year, they were damn close to being undefeated as well in the regular season, and they got beat in the playoff. And a lot of these kids that are on that team were on that JMU team with Chris Ignetti that also experienced a lot of success. So, like, while it is a big milestone for Indiana University for that football program, it's not like he was that program's savior, if that makes sense, you know. But he was the first, so that's I think just highlighting how great of a season he had is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something a lot of people discuss this in the college football space. So I'll bring it up. A lot of people will talk about the Heisman Award. Is it a shell of itself? Does it hold the same significance it always has? And I think this is not like the answer to that to me is it is a shell of itself and what it used to be, but this is not a good example of that.
Right.
I think this was a good example of the opposite, where it was, hey, I do think maybe the most deserving player did end up winning the Heisman this year. I think you could make a good argument for Julian Sand. You can make a good argument for Diego Pavia. You could make a good argument for Jacob Rodriguez. But I also think you can make a good argument for Fernando Mendoza. And I don't think you can convince me that no team benefited more from this singular individual than Indiana did with Mendoza. We saw how good Indiana was last year, but we saw their ceiling. And Curtis Rourke was great. That's not a knock on him at all. The Indiana team had a ceiling, and we saw it last year. They broke through that this year. And I think like we saw what Diego Pavia was at Vanderbilt last year, and it was pretty similar. We know Ohio State is the wagon that they are. And yes, Julian Sand was great, but you could make the argument there's probably 30 quarterbacks in college football who could have had similar season to Julian Sand at Ohio State, given everything that they have going on there. Jacob Rodriguez was an amazing story. It's hard to quantify and qualify how good defensive players are, and that's just a very unfortunate aspect of him and the award. Now, and that's part of that conversation of, hey, like, do we need to rethink how we view this award? He was phenomenal, but like you said, the Mendoza story is awesome. He was a really good dude. He had one of the best seasons in Indiana football history, statistically and just emotionally. I thought he was really great all year. They won some big games that nobody really gave him a chance to win. He won 2 of those. But I'm happy with him winning. So I think 2 things are true. Mendoza deserved and earned this Heisman, and he was a good test case of the Heisman still means something. But I think it's fair and true to say, hey, the Heisman is kind of becoming a shell. And I think the reason being is I think Jacob Rodriguez should have been in that Final Four. Did he deserve to win it? Again, whole nother conversation. but I think he was a Final Four finalist. I thought he was
Yeah.
one of the 4 best players in college football. Monte Teo almost won a Heisman, and he had more tackles for losses, more sacks, more passes defended, more interceptions, like more forced fumbles, more fumble recoveries. And that was a Heisman caliber year, and he blew that out of the water. So maybe that would be the lean in. But I don't think I've been seeing people. I say all this to say I've seen a lot of people attack Mendoza and the credibility of him winning the Heisman. I'm shooting that down. I don't really buy all that. Like, if you want to get nitpicky over this guy had 400 more yards and one more touchdown. Okay, that's good, but Mendoza went 13-0. He won on the road at Oregon, a team that hadn't lost in the Big Ten in 2 years. He beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Both those games, nobody gave him a shot. I would rather my Heisman be a really good person that also won 2 games everybody counted them out for than have a couple extra stats that he could have padded. You know, I mean, he sat end of games. Like, if he wanted to throw for 400 more yards, we could go back throughout the year and say, well, he didn't play this third quarter and fourth quarter, and we could go fill that in. But the storyline is there for sure.
I think, how do I put this? So the last defensive player not named Travis Hunter, because Travis Hunter was both, to win the Heisman was Charles Woodson in 1997. So I think when you're talking about, is this a shell of what it's been? You could argue it has been from the beginning. It's an offensive player award. You're not going to get, unless there's something drastically unprecedented, you're not going to get a defensive player in there. So one of the reasons I think people are down, and I hate saying down on this Heisman winner, because I feel like like you said, he's deserving. He had a great season. He went undefeated. So all of those check the boxes of being the Heisman. But I think one of the reasons that people are down on him as Heisman is, let me read you the last like 10 Heismans. Travis Hunter last year, unprecedented cornerback, wide receiver, played both sides, played a ton of snaps, had a pretty good season. Colorado had their best season in a long time. He won the Heisman. Jane Daniels the year before, unequivocally the best quarterback in the country, had a ridiculous season. And if it wasn't for Brian Kelly failing that defense, they probably would have been in the national title conversation. But they just took a couple losses because LSU's defense that year couldn't stop anybody. So Jaden Daniels, like, that season had magic to it. The year before that, Caleb Williams, first year at USC, magic. Like, everything he did was like Caleb was a magician. He made some unbelievable plays. Bryce Young, I mean, the term Bryce Young magic was born from his Heisman year in 2021. Whatever you think about him in the NFL right now, by the way, he's a playoff quarterback right now as it stands. But as a college quarterback, that dude was, if he was like a couple inches taller, he was doing what Caleb Williams did. He like, that season he was clearly the best player in the country. Devontae Smith in 2020. Now that was a weird year, COVID. I think the only chance wide receivers really have of winning the Heisman is if their quarterback, and all due respect to Mac Jones, is Mac Jones. Because their quarterback is like a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. Because in general, if you're a wide receiver and you put up historic numbers, more likely than not, your quarterback is going to win the Heisman, because
Mm-hmm.
he hit those passes to you. He hit those passes to everyone else. You know, like, he made those plays. So the quarterback, unless it is a quote unquote system quarterback like Mac Jones, that's the only chance wide receivers are going to win it. Devontae Smith had a crazy year. Joe Burrow, probably the quarterback, the best offense or team we've ever seen, at least in the last 25 years. Kyler Murray, just a ridiculous year. Baker Mayfield, another ridiculous year. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Marcus Mariota, all ridiculous. Like, I think each of, like, the term Heisman moment has been coined over the last several years. I mean, it's been coined a long time before that. But my point is, I don't think Fernando Mendoza necessarily had one Heisman moment. Like, even the pass to Omar Cooper Jr., that was a good pass. That was a good read. But a lot of that was Omar Cooper Jr. getting a foot down.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, but the collection of everything he did all year was his Heisman deserving case. But I think the reason people are down on it is because you look at the last 10 Heismans that I just like shouted out, every one of them had a moment. Every one of them was like that season, if you remember, was like, bro, this kid's unbelievable. This kid made what
Mm-hmm.
play? He spun out of what sack to to eventually throw a touchdown. Like there was some magician like plays, and I've said that word too many times already, that were made by some of those kids in the past that almost warranted the Heisman. But now, because I don't think Fernando necessarily didn't have a unbelievable play like that, people are down on it.
Yeah, I think as fans, especially people in and around our age, mid 20s, we grew up and like our first memories of superstar college football players kind of come around like the 2010 turn, right? Like that's when we were people around our age were between like 8 and 14. That's kind of when a lot of us like start to really form like vivid memories of special plays. And we got spoiled. That was Cam Newton, RG3, Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota were those slew of 5 straight Heismans. And we got spoiled because all 5 of those Heismans were unbelievable. Like those 5 football players, those seasons are like 5 of the 10 greatest seasons in college football history
Yeah.
that we just got like back to back as kids. So it's easy for I think us to sometimes like have this untouchable mentality of a Heisman winner should be Cam Newton, a guy that just blatantly carried the crap out of the Auburn team to an unbelievable season. RG3, who was thrown for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns a game, and it looked like he was playing a video game, right? Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, to your point, all of them had those crazy highlights. Like you would turn on Sports Center the next morning on Sunday and what crazy play did these 3 make? And it was here's Marcus Mariota with a pump fake 80-yard touchdown. Oh, here's Jameis Winston with a 70-yard bomb. Here's Johnny Manziel breaking 4 tackles and then throwing a 30-yard touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. Like we got spoiled. And so I think a lot of people have held the Heisman to that standard for so long. And not that none of these other guys have been deserving or haven't been good.
Yeah.
Like Mendoza's season wasn't quite as sexy as Marcus
Exactly
Mariota's
the
season.
point. Yeah.
He didn't have the sexy stats when you look at it. He didn't have the sexy highlights, but when you go and you watch it, like we've watched a lot of Indiana football, me being in the Midwest, I've watched a lot of Indiana football. He was just so reliable every single snap. He never took a game off, never took a snap off, had 0 bad games. Even when he had a lower moment or made a bad throw like the pick 6, he picked himself up immediately, turned it around, and led a really good team to their best season in school history. Again, wasn't as sexy on paper or the highlights, but I think it was well deserved by him. So I'm not mad about it at all. But that's my bow tie at least on the idea that the award or he didn't deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. ESPN's already come out with their way too early 2026 Heisman Award candidates. Why not do the same thing on Flag for Discussion? Look, we can be content farmers too. We don't like content farmers, but we can be content farmers. Jace, I don't want to go down their list. I want to create our own list. Do you have a couple guys in mind who you think will be standing there on that podium? Maybe not the winner, but they're the 4 finalists.
Yeah, I have a couple names. I'll get the 2 really obvious ones out of the way, and Julian Sayin and Jeremiah Smith. Julian Sayin was there this year. He was a redshirt freshman. He's going to be back at Ohio State next year. He's going to be back throwing to Jeremiah Smith and whatever other 5 stars they have on ready to go. So those are 2 names that are kind of easy to throw out there. And another one that is pretty easy if he returns to college is Dante Moore. Homer, I know we're Oregon fans, but if he comes back to college, very good shot that he will be up on the podium with a shot to win it, especially with the track record Oregon has had of putting quarterbacks there. But kind of a name that you're not probably not a first ballot pick for people that are listening, and you might not see in the media, but a name that could be up there is Jaden Mayava. Was a quarterback at USC, young quarterback this year, his first full season starting. He looked amazing. He looks the part, big throws. I feel like he didn't use his legs quite as much as we know that he can. USC is a team that they're going to lose Mekhi Lemon, but they might return Jacoby Lane, and I'm blanking on the freshman's name, but he had a big game against Oregon. That's a quarterback that I could see having a huge year, and in a Lincoln Riley style offense that's produced Caleb Williams, who won a Heisman when he was at Oklahoma. I can't recall if he was the direct reason for Baker or for Kyler, but he's been in and around elite quarterbacks, helping them win Heismans. He knows what it takes, and he runs that offense that works well. So that's a name you would be on the lookout for. I know you have some good names that I think are even better pulls than me, so I'm going to hand it over to you to give us some of your names.
Before I do that, I do have a question. Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, undefeated year next year, let's say. What's Jeremiah Smith's path to winning it? Because it directly contradicts what I said before like 10 minutes ago of I think a wide receiver is only going to win it if their quarterback's a nondescript dude. But Julian saying, for all intents and purposes, really good quarterback who's just going to be growing one more year next year. So if he has a crazy year, but a lot of that is to Jeremiah Smith. I think that the other question there is Jeremiah Smith just that good that it doesn't matter if his quarterback has a crazy year, he can win it. He can be the exception to that rule because Jeremiah Smith is
Yeah.
just that ridiculous.
I think it's that part. One way would be Julian Sane gets hurt and Jeremiah Smith still cooks with whoever comes in. I also think if Jeremiah Smith is good enough, and I think everybody knows that if he put up monster years, people would be comfortable with the mentality that, oh yeah, like he, not that he carried Julian Sane, but that he was the reason why he had these stats. Also, like he's a pretty dominant football player. If he puts on 4 or 5 just unbelievable highlights on tape, just crazy moss 3 guys in the end zone, one hand catches, breaks 6 tackles on a screen and takes it 80 yards of the house, which he's very capable of all of those things I just said. It's like if he puts on a few of those on the tape, there's a world where he's up there too. There's a world where both of them are on, like 50-50 who's going to get it or not. Depends on at that point who they think would be better. But yeah, it's always going to be tough for a wide receiver. But I think in Jeremiah Smith's case, he's that good, and we all know that he's that good, that I could see a world where he does break that typical quarterback's going to get over the receiver scenario.
All right, let's see if these names interest you. Arch Manning.
He's going to be in the conversation just because of his last name.
But I think this time is going to be more deserving. Not necessarily that he had a crazy year this year, but it's like at least we've seen him play football. And theoretically, you would assume a program like Texas and a experienced head coach like Sark is going to assess the issues that they had on the offensive line, the running game this year. And he already has. They fired the running back coach, hired a new one already. 2 running backs have transferred out. You would assume that Texas isn't going anywhere next year, and they probably could be better. And a lot of that is also including a jump from Arch. I think he is someone to look out on. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
sold that stock I bought like week 7, but I can't believe you let me buy Arch stock before they played Georgia. But that price dipped. But at the same time, I know people hate saying here there's a shot. There is a shot. Another guy, I think about the Notre Dame revenge story and how, like, we've talked about a lot of things their AD said, Pete Babakwa. We've talked about how we don't like some of that stuff. We talked about how we don't like the Notre Dame's football team decided to opt out of the bowl game after they were left out of the playoff. But think about the potential of this team could be coming into next year with a chip on their shoulder of like, we're not going to leave anything to the committee's choices. We're going to go take a top 4 seed, top 5 seed. And a lot of that's going to be CJ Carr leading the way. So
Yeah,
CJ Carr, I think, yeah.
if CJ Carr has a huge, like exactly what you're saying, and he loses Jeremiah Love, he loses J. Adrian Price, and they're even better, and he's the reason why. You're absolutely right. That would be a great story. He would have the backing of like, look at how much better we got, and look at who we lost, and we still improved. Yeah, he would have everything. That's a great call.
I just think like there's a very real shot that they're going to be coming out with like as like the I don't know, the revenge game. Like this is the revenge season. We're pissed off about how last year went and or like how last year finished. We're not letting the committee have any say in whether or not we're in the playoff because we're going to go take care of business. I like that potential. A couple more guys. You already mentioned Dante Moore. I don't think Ahmad Hardy can win it at Mizzou, but he put up over 1,500 yards on the ground this year. He was really I don't know if he's gonna like you said. You asked me before the show. I don't think he's gonna transfer, but if he does the same on the ground this next year as he does this year, and Mizzou doesn't lose their quarterback in the middle of the year, they have a healthier season, meaning they probably win up 1 or 2 more games. You could easily see him up on there. Bo
Mm-hmm.
Jackson, I saw that
Yep.
on the ESPN way too early, and I thought a lot of that was I thought a lot of the list was phooey, but I love Bo Jackson.
Yeah, he's really
Both Bo
good.
Jacksons, but this Bo
Yeah,
Jackson,
both are really good.
Yeah, this one hasn't accomplished what the first one did yet, but this one at least on Ohio State, man, he's got a burst. He can get like I'm excited to see what it looks like in that system, especially when they figure out who's running that system again next year for as he grows. I don't know if he's going to be up there. Marcel Reed, you have him
Yeah, it's a
highlighted.
great name.
You'd have to think that A&M is going to continue to grow and rise from here. And they have a couple of the best receivers in football this year. We'll see how next year goes with more roster construction and more stacking talent. The only problem is Colin Klein, his offensive coordinator, is leaving to Kansas State. So, how well does a defensive coach in Mike Elko hire to make sure that offense doesn't skip a beat next year?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question for Marcel Reed. I think Texas A&M has the funding to go out and get a top name and someone that they really like and be competitive in that offer. Also, Marcel Reed, like we were talking about, guys that kind of have that magic, can make those sexy plays. He's one of them. He's a guy that has like every bit of potential to have like a Johnny Manziel highlight kind of thing. I didn't even mean to do the Texas A&M parallel there, but like Marcel Reed is the guy that is going to somehow avoid 4 sacks and keep hold on to the ball for 10 seconds and then somehow air it out deep. They always seem to have good playmakers at wide receiver as well. I'm not sure if it's confirmed that he's going to lose Craver and Concepcion, but if he does, that would obviously hurt him a little bit too. Just have to go replace two superstar receivers. But again, that's a school with recruiting and NIL and transfer portal. They're going to be an attractive destination. They've got the competitive fundings to build around him. But yeah, he's got that sexy playability that not a lot of guys have.
The other guy who has a sexy playability, we'll see what his head coach decides to do, is Damon Williams. And
Yep.
Damon certainly has areas and room to grow. See it whenever they play teams that are just a little better than him, better than them, where he gets a little overwhelmed at the line of scrimmage. He isn't hitting receivers as easily. It's going to be interesting to see how he does without a Denzel Boston next year when Denzel goes to the draft this year. But Damon makes ridiculous Heisman worthy plays. So
Mhm.
I'm fully bought in on hopefully it's not against my team, but I'm fully bought in on him being a potential Heisman finalist in the coming years. Because we have to also think about it, he's young. I think this was his sophomore year, like a true sophomore year.
Let's look at this.
So that that's overall what I feel. I know you have some conversations that you want to have on potential, like on the highs and lows of the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think that's
Do
a
you want?
fun conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun we'll stick with the Mendoza Heisman conversation. Mendoza, transfer quarterback, won a Heisman. If you go look at like Jaden Daniels, right? Transfer. Caleb Williams, transfer. Cam Ward, transfer. Those are just some big names the last couple of years that I think really boosted their NFL stock and just their names through transferring. Obviously, great cases of highs of the transfer portal. And even this season, we've seen big and small. We've seen people, obviously, Fernando Mendoza, most obvious, like transferred in and had the most successful season. It really took his names from just a guy at Cal, just us Pac-12 guys, right? We always liked Mendoza and we thought he was a good Cal quarterback, but most of the country didn't even know who he was or was on the same page as we were. Now look at him, right? And then you have Malik Benson out of Oregon. He was a kind of a flame out at Alabama and
Alabama
Florida
and
State.
Florida State.
People kind of called him a bum, and now he's making highlight reels. And I think everybody's seen probably 4 or 5 highlights from Malik Benson this year. On the receiver trailers, Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver that went to Texas A&M. They really built their names up. You have Max Clare from Purdue to Ohio State, also another Purdue guy, Dylan Thieneman, Purdue to Oregon. You have Kewen Lacey that went to Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss to Ole Miss, Ahmad Hardy, who you just talked about. There's a lot of really positive case studies and highs this year of people who transferred to another program to earn playing time, to earn a spot, and it worked out for them really well. And then you even have people like, I think a good Cam Cook is a name I didn't mention, but he was a guy that was at TCU and transferred down to Jacksonville State, really wanted to get a starting job and felt like he had deserved that. And Jacksonville State was a place that he felt like had a good system and a good match, even though it was as a downgrade as a school. That worked out really well for him. I think he was the nation's leading rusher, and now people are saying, hey, if you went to the portal, you're going to get an NIL bag, and you're going to be able to kind of have the pick of the litter of a Power 4 top-end school. So there's some really good case studies, and I'm really proud of a lot of these kids in the sense that like I thought they did a really good job analyzing their current situations, thinking, what are my goals? Where do I want to be at the end of next year? Can this school offer me that? No. Okay. What can? And these guys make good choices. Very impressed by it. Not a lot of people are willing to
Unbelievable
take
story.
less NIL money to a smaller school to prove themselves, but it's worked out. Because I mean, you saw what happened with Makai Hughes and Jay Knott, right? Transferred up. They transferred to a bigger school with for more money, and they didn't even. Neither of them sniffed the field and played a lick of important snaps for either of their teams. Now they're just going to be clawing for anybody to give them a chance. I don't know if they're really going to get that, and we'll see what happens with their careers. You hope it pans out, but I don't want to say they ruined it with the decisions that they made, but they set themselves back. Cam Cook, man, like now, like I said, he's going to be making a bag at somewhere big to be a starting running back. Very impressive for these young men. So the transfer portal, as much as college football space, we'd love to hate on it. We'd love to. There needs to be regulations. I'm not saying it's perfect. Do not get me wrong. That's a whole other conversation. But really good test cases for the highs. Unfortunately, those highs don't come without some lows this year as well. And I'm curious, like my question that I'm going to lead into here is for guys like Jackson Arnold, Makai Hughes, Jaden Ott, Malik Murphy, did when they transferring didn't work out for these guys. They transferred elsewhere, didn't pan out. Now it's really set them back. Was this a mistake on the schools that took them? Was it a mistake on them reading the situation? Is it just bad luck? Like, how do you analyze the lows? I think the highs are easy to analyze, but how do you look at the lows?
I mean, if a company offered you 300 grand, I don't know however much, but if a company offered you right now 300 grand more than what you're currently making, and they just said, hey, we need you to move to Louisiana, and you just get there day one, it's not working out, you would one, take it, probably. And then two, you'd get there, it's not working out. You'd be like, huh, was that my fault for taking the money?
Yeah, that's a good. Like, who do
Or
you put the blame on? Right?
right. So like Jay Lott, we knew he was an extremely talented player. I think he had an injury that he was recovering from. Makai Hughes, extremely talented, unbelievable year at Tulane last year. Look, if he didn't flame out of Oregon, he could have gone somewhere else. Maybe some of the like Makai Hughes had every reason to believe that he was going to be successful at Oregon. Name the last running back in Dan Lanning's system that hasn't worked out at Oregon. Maybe Dante Dowdell, but Dante Dowdell chose to transfer out before he had a bigger role in the beginning. He was never a starter. Bucky Irving came, got drafted. Jordan James came, got drafted. There was a hole for the number one spot. Oregon just recruited really well at running back. And I honestly think like Makai Hughes still probably could have gotten playing time and developed into this scheme, but he just assessed the situation saying, oh, everyone here is as good or better than me. I'm going to keep a red shirt and I'm going to go find somewhere else so I can keep another year of football and not lose it. I think part of it is programs not evaluating at top speed and being in a rush in the offseason saying like, well, we need depth of running back. We need depth here,
Yeah,
or we need depth of receiver. We need depth of D line. Oh wow, this job's open. So part of the problem is programs aren't evaluating everything perfectly. But I also don't think you can evaluate everything perfectly. Like if
that's
you
a
told
great
me
point.
like, I think if you told me Makai Hughes next year ends up back with John Summerall and at Florida and has a good year, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He's back in a system and with a coach that he was most successful with. He's back in it's not necessarily a Tulane, but like maybe like he could probably go to Florida if John Summerall wants him back and go be
Mhm.
really successful. It doesn't mean these kids don't have talent. Jackson Arnold, he's clearly very talented. It's just something still not clicking. Now, at that point, the question, like, it begs the question of, can you humble yourself like Cam Cook did? It's like, I could
Mhm.
play where I am, maybe split carries, or I could go get legit snaps for a year somewhere. Like, all these guys are young enough where they can still figure it out. And the transfer portal, one of the negative things it's done is kids don't want to deal with adversity anymore. They're not playing, they transfer out. But one of the positive things it's done is kids who don't like the system they're in, it doesn't fit them well. Or if they want to do what Cam Cook did, is humble themselves, take a step back before they take a step forward, go take a ton of snaps per game, like it live snaps. So you don't like it all makes sense to me where Jackson Arnold, if he's young enough where if he takes a step back and is like, I could go to JMU, let's say, I don't know, I'm just throwing a school
No,
out there. I could go to Tulane and get better on a lower brand level, and then maybe at that point, if I have a good year and I keep getting better, someone else will come calling. It's just a tough situation in general, just who's at fault. I think all parties are involved. I think part of it's on evaluation of how a kid fits in your scheme. I think part of it is how does this guy's talent compare, like translate to Power Four versus a Group of Five. There's a whole mixed bag of why some of these kids don't work out, and
Mhm.
honestly, and this is the dirty secret of it. These kids are transfers for a reason. I'm not saying anything specifically about the kids that we've talked about, but the dirty secret is one of the reasons some kids don't work out somewhere is they don't belong or they don't fit in the locker room. They don't fit with the other kids that transferred in. They don't buy into the coach's message, and it pretty quickly they flame out. Like I said, I'm not saying that's what happened to Jay Knott, Nick Anderson, Makai Hughes, Jackson Arnold, Malik Murphy. Some of
Yeah.
that's just like Malik Murphy probably made the wrong decision going to Oregon
Yeah.
State.
That
But
was
at the
one
same
even when
time,
that
yeah.
happened, we both were like, "Are we sure about that?" Like, that was one we even called out in the moment, like, "Oh, I don't know if that's the right call." That just felt like a case of a bad decision. I really like your point about coaches rushing to fill depth. I think that was a really good answer you had. So I was kind of diving through the schedule. Like as you were talking, I was thinking about that. The schedule is tough. Like the portal opens fresh after the new year. Some of these top teams are still fighting for their seasons. There's still a couple of teams playing, top end teams playing, like teams that are important, teams that have 4 stars in depth roles, teams that super like young, like superstars on smaller teams want to go to. But when they're busy, like, you think about a scenario, Ohio State's keep continuing to play. Well, if you're 5 star number 4 on the depth chart at wide receiver there, at some point in the play, like, the Ohio State coaches and players are thinking about the season that you're in currently, not about the future. But you're probably thinking about the future because one, you're not really playing. And two, you're like, I think I have the talent to be really good. If Jeremiah, if this guy leaves early, or this guy leaves early, or this guy leaves early, then I have a real shot at playing time next year. But if they all decide to stay, then I'm not going to play. Like they're thinking about those things, but the team's not quite on that same page, and it does force the hand of like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to transfer. I'm not going to deal with this. And then if you're Ryan Day, you're an Ohio State staffer, and all of a sudden now you're thinking like, oh man, like I had a plan for this kid, I just lost him. I just want comfortability to know I have this spot filled on my roster. Let me just go grab a good portal kid. Especially those big schools, like they've got the money to like to
Well, if you
throw at
think
a
about
kid,
it,
and if it doesn't work
yeah.
out, they're fine. So like, and they're gonna go quickly snag somebody. And unfortunately, that doesn't always mean the portal kid was the right fit, the school was the right fit. It can work out, but the schedule does make it a very difficult scenario for a lot of these kids, which it feels like a lot of the issues in college football kind of come back to the schedule of the season and like the mess up there.
Well, if you think about it though, speaking of the schedule, they changed it for this year, and it's still not fixed, but it is different and a little better. So at least the transfer portal, as we're currently speaking, is not open. Last year it was.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, the transfer portal opens January 2nd. And one thing the coaches have been complaining about across college football since, I don't know, it was that the fact that like the second transfer portal window in spring would open after spring ball or before spring ball. And all they kept complaining about is like, I want to know what team I have once we get to spring ball. I don't want to be like, go into spring ball saying, "Well, this wide receiver, if we don't get him enough first team looks, he's going to transfer out." He's like, I want to feel like after I finish spring practices and have the spring game, that this is my team, so we can spend the rest of the off season preparing, planning, and prepping for the next season. Now, the downside of that is if you go through spring ball and say, "Man, we could use another running back," or "Man, we could use a little more explosion at defensive line," then you in the previous years you could have gone out and gotten a new guy, but at the same time, I think in general, the current wave is better for college football having the transfer portal open January 2nd. And it's one window. But but in saying that, you're gonna see probably some programs making a little bit more like quick decisions. Like not the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world, the Oregons of the world. But I think Penn State, Virginia Tech, ironically, combining those two, Al, Kentucky, programs that want to get immediately better, programs that have a ton of room to fill. they're going to be taking a lot of players
Mm,
this cycle. So then it just depends on if you are the head coach, if you are Ryan Day, if you are Dan Lanning, if you are Kirby Smart, and you're like, we probably don't need 10 transfers, but we want the best guy. We want the defensive lineman that just wants like that can make a little bit more of an impact. We want the blue chip of the blue chip.
mhm.
You take that jump. You might flame out if you do it quickly, but I think that's why a lot of these programs have GMs, have personnel departments. So the head coach, like you said, at Ohio State can focus on the playoff, can focus on playing games, can focus on game plan, can focus on filling his offensive coordinator role. And the GM and the personnel people can bring a plan for the portal outside of that.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate it's a scenario that I think is not best for the student athlete, and that's probably first and foremost the most important thing about what we should be doing for the schedule. But it's better. I would like to see maybe a little bit more, like maybe push it out a little bit. Let this like I don't know. I'm a bit let the season finish. I think that's my like first and foremost. Like we should not be playing football games while also having to iron out our roster spots. It's also difficult because nowadays players do not have to declare for the NFL draft for quite a while after the portal, and that's also difficult. If you're somewhere and you want to transfer into like let's say you're a quarterback and you're like, man, I love what the Oregon Ducks have done with Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore. I see a world where they can develop me like them and I want to play on Sundays. But that job, like your ability to play QB1 in Oregon is entirely dependent on if Dante Moore were to go pro or not. And it stinks because as a kid, you can say, you know what, everything is telling me that he's going to go pro. I'm going to transfer here. You transfer in, and then 3 weeks later, I'm actually going to stay. Well, shoot. Now you're back up. Now you just did nothing to benefit yourself. Plus, like we see how people and fans and the media handle guys who transfer. You kind of get clowned. For some reason, it's seen as stupid, even though like we've all made switches in our lives to make our lives better. And I think you'd be dumb not to. That's unfortunate though, and that stinks. And that's also part of the issue. Like the fact that I don't know what this 2026 roster is going to look like because I don't know who's going to be in the draft or not. I don't know who's going to open up or not. But you got to make that decision as a transfer. It makes the decisions of like Cam Cook all the more impressive to say, I'm going to take this one step back, but that might mean I'm going to take three forward. And I'm not even going to mess around with this program or a school where I'm going to put myself in a scenario to get screwed over. I'm just going to go somewhere where I'm going to be, I'm going to like I know I'm going to have a chance to showcase my talent. I'm going to go somewhere to do it. I think it makes decisions like that all the more impressive. Difficult, but impressive.
Well, I think that just depends on, to be honest with you, who's advising the kid at that point. Is it Uncle Jack or is it?
That's
Uh,
the issue. How much do we trust agents in the? You and I have worked in the agent college world space pre NIL.
yeah,
Remember what our boss had said about agents? Not always
yeah,
the biggest fan. Don't want to
they're
say any more than
wannabes.
that. Yeah, we know agents. We know people who work in that industry. We've heard professionals in the college football space who have very strong opinions about people in that. Like, is it? Do you trust a kid's uncle that's trying to get them to make money? Do we even trust the agents that are working for
I
these
mean, right
kids?
now, Sam Levitt's brother is the one that's being advising him, and Sam Levitt's brother's lawyer. I think, and the problem is, anyone with a law degree right now thinks they're an agent if they have proximity to a player. And the worst thing is, a lot of these players, it's not their uncle that has the law degree; it's their uncle's best friend that has the law degree. So their uncle's the advisor, but realistically, he's just trying to get things through the best friend. There are a lot of agents out there that are legit. Bryce Underwood with an actual agency. He made a lot of money and he has good people advising him. So to answer your original question, it depends on who's advising him. I don't think in your case, an agent, a professional agent who handles both NFL and college players is necessarily going to be like not know what Dante Moore is going to think, or it's not going to be able to like have that conversation with Dan Lanning and be like, hey, I need to know before my kid commits to you because it depends. That'll affect his future if he commits to you and Dante comes back. It depends on who's representing these kids, advising these kids, and a lot of times it's slimy. More often than not than we want it to be, it's slimy. But it just depends on who's advising them. If it's I mean, like you said, Cam Cook, really great story, but there's not a lot of that out there. I mean, and you can't. How do I put it? You can't fault kids for saying this school's offering me 100 grand more than I currently make at this school, and I'll still get the same amount of playing time, still get the same amount of snaps. It's like 6 hours away, but whatever. I can't fault that. I mean, everyone at this point would take that jump for a significant raise in what they currently make. So if a
Mhm.
college kid's doing it and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars for the university, I'm not going to fault that. One quick, I just want to be quick on this. The Michigan coaching search is continuing. We don't know who's really involved. I saw reports this morning. Michigan's reached out to Eli Drinkwitz and Mizzou. Michigan's reached out to Kenny Dillingham. Michigan's reached out to Kalen DeBoer. It really depends on. I don't know. I personally don't believe that Kalen or Kenny will leave. With that said, like we said on the previous show, those are your first two calls. I almost would make Kenny your first call. Like Kenny is dynamic. He has a personality. He's a guy that truly gets it. He is a dynamic offense. People want to play for him. People want to coach for him. And he just like he doesn't have the resources or the funding at ASU, and he's been saying that loudly. Yesterday, the rumor was they were coming close to an agreement with ASU, Kenny Dillingham and his people, with ASU on an extension. Oh, that was reported. We haven't seen the report that he has signed the extension. Right. So that's first and foremost, that's what's important. The second thing is Kenny Dillingham hasn't going into yesterday. Apparently, he delayed practice an hour and 45 minutes because he wanted to play basketball. That's what he said. Which, believe him or not, there's a chance he just like the guy he is, he just wants to play basketball. But or there's a chance he was getting off a Zoom with his agents, at least trying to figure out one side of it. He was asked after practice about the Michigan job, and he goes, I mean, that's one of the best programs in the country. It's one of the best logos in the country. I think everyone can agree there. In today's era, I think it's one of the best jobs in the country, and I think everyone can attest to that. That and then he got emotional. I don't know if you've seen the video. That doesn't change how I feel about here. That doesn't change that my parents live three doors down. That doesn't change that my sister is my neighbor. That doesn't change that my son's best friend is my sister's daughter. None of that changes. Whenever I say I don't think he's going to leave ASU, it's because of that last two sentences where like he's got it made, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And he's at his alma mater. He's at a place that he loves. His family's all right next to him. His high school coaches are like on his staff. With that said, when a brand like Michigan comes calling, gives you a war chest of resources, you got to think about it. And I think that's what's going on there. Just to be quick, who do you think's the head coach of Michigan?
I think it's all being all. I think it's going to be Jed Fish. Not It's not even me trying to knock on Washington as an Oregon fan. Just me trying to analyze the sport. I think Washington at this point in time is kind of a stepping stone job. I think it's a good, not quite elite job at the moment, and I think Michigan is a step up. I think Alabama was a step up. We saw DeBoer leave for that. I think Michigan's a step up. I think we'll see Jed Fish leave for that. I don't know exactly what it would take for them to get to the next level. Maybe it was a little bit of funding or something of that nature. But I think it's going to be Jed Fish. I don't think he's loved enough at Washington, and I don't think he loves Washington enough to make that a marriage the way that Kenny Dillingham has and is and does with Arizona State and Tempe. I don't think Jed Fish has that. His family's already moved out of Seattle earlier this year just because they didn't really like Seattle. It sounds like, granted, Ann Arbor is pretty damn similar to Seattle, so we'll have
It,
to see how that goes there.
to be honest, it probably sounded more like, at least reading through the tea leaves, they might not have loved Seattle, but it was probably like he wanted his daughter to finally graduate from a school with her friends, instead of like keep changing schools, like because Jet has moved around everywhere.
Yeah.
He spent a couple years at Michigan, he spent a couple years with the LA Rams, spent a couple years at Arizona, spent a couple years everywhere. Now he's out a couple years at Washington. I don't disagree with the Jed Fish being the head coaching candidate there. I do think I would find it interesting how that would go. Bryce Underwood stays. What's going on there? Obviously, we'll get more into the Michigan coaching shows. There's just not a ton going on as currently speaking. Maybe the second we get off this podcast, something will come out, and I'm sure something will. I have a couple more questions. We're gonna kill hot take segment today. That's a evergreen segment. We can talk about that another time.
Good
But
point.
I have a couple questions for you. And
Hit me with them.
this is part of the same conversation of the college football calendar being screwed up. Why isn't Army and Navy our week 0 game? Like, it's one of the coolest parts of the season, and you could have Army Navy kick off the season. You don't have a bunch of random teams playing. Everyone else starts week 1. Army Navy kicks off college football. So then they don't have to play December 13th when they probably like our Navy has a bowl game. They have bowl games left. It's one of the coolest like pageantry traditional events of college football. The president's there. He spends one half of the game on one side with one branch of the military and then walks across midfield to spend the next half of the game with the other branch of the military. Before the game, they have the quote unquote prisoner swap where every year they send every semester like a couple army students spend that semester at Navy, a couple of Navy students spend that semester at Army because even though they're rivals and they're rivals of each other at school, they need to work together in their future line of work to secure us, to be heroes, to be and protect us. Like, it's just one of the biggest, like, I don't even know, symbols of college football is the Army Navy game.
I agree. It's a ton of fun, and I'm completely with you. It where it is today, being played at the end of the year, kind of in this off week time frame,
It
kind
doesn't
of
fit.
kills. Yeah, it kills the. I don't know. It kind of kills the excitement of the game, like leading up to it, and then you're watching it, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot how fun this was, or how cool this was. It's just like at this point in the season, fans are just so focused on bowl games and the playoff, and if your team missed it, you're kind of like, screw college football. It's not at a good point in the year. I'm with you. It'd be a great way to start the season. It would be really fun to start it this way. It'd be a little bit more electric, I think. Also, I've done the research now. We've talked about some previous pod. This game does not count as an American. They're both in the American Conference. It does not count as a conference game, but they still could meet in the conference title, which would mean they would play each other like last week, and then they
Yeah.
would have played again for like a meaningless game this week. And if one of them was to make the playoff, why would you play in that game? Like then you're like, okay, well, do I really want to play 3 times in 3 weeks when like all these other teams are kind of getting some time off? It kind of adds a weird layer. Is it an advantage to not have a long bye? Is it a disadvantage because now you're playing an extra game?
Yeah.
Beginning of the season would be fun because you can make it a conference game. Then it can like matter. And then if they both do make the conference championship, then it's not like an awkward. They get to be the same schedule as everybody else. I think beginning of the season it would add the lore and the fun from fan standpoint to watching this game. I'm totally with you. It's very awkward that it happens like at this point in the year.
It's just like the tradition, everything we love about college football that differentiates it from the NFL. Like, we love the NFL, but everything that differentiates college football from the NFL can be found and seen in the Army Navy game. And how much better of an example to the rest of the world of your sport than to kick off your season with those two military branches fighting it out with the president there. Whatever you think about the president, like every year, you know what I mean?
Also, hear me out. What if we move the season a little bit and you get Army Navy like the weekend of Labor Day? It's kind of you're kind of feeling the little bit of patrioticness. Everyone's kind of hyped up for football. It's the fall's turning. You're kind of usually with family and friends already. I know that wouldn't be week one. It would depend on the season, but that's we'll workshop that one. But that could be a fun way to play that game as well.
The only reason that wouldn't work is the playoff gets pushed back to like, I don't know, February. And the college football, just like every other sport, when it comes down to it, they're not going to want to compete with the NFL as long as they can for
That's
ratings.
true.
There's a reason the national championship game is on a Monday.
I mean, week one of the college football season this year, like the first games for all these teams were played on August 30th, which is only
Yeah.
the week. It's only 1 week difference. If we were to,
Yeah.
instead of playing then, we
That's
played on
fair.
Labor Day. It'd only be 1 week pushback. And then we could get rid of this bye week that we have now. Like teams don't need 3 weeks off before the playoff.
No.
I feel like that's egregious. We could just move that to 2 and then move the schedule down.
Well, this is a definitely an off-season conversation that we'll have, but
True.
it's the issue with our sport right now and the calendar is we are trying to fit an old system with a new system. Bowl games, I'm sorry, do not work in the new system. And like bowl games are a thing of the past. And whenever we figure that out, then the calendar can be starting to be fixed. We're also trying to marry a current $1 billion football system, athletic system, with educational calendars, academic
Yeah.
calendars. So we'll get into all of that during the offseason, I promise you. A couple more notes. FCS Final Four is set. Villanova versus Illinois State, Montana versus Montana State. Jace, who you got winning it all in the FCS?
Give me the Grizz, baby. I've actually been to both Montana State and Montana, not as a student, but been to both those cities. My grandparents live outside of Missoula. So as a kid, I would rock a Montana Grizz sweatshirt. If you see any picture of me between like fourth grade and eighth grade, odds are I'm wearing my gray Montana Grizz in the maroon. Really freaking cool campuses. Montana Stadium is electric. I'm going to roll with Montana. I've got a friend that's was in the athletic department at Villanova, actually two friends. So for them, go Cats, but let's go Grizz.
Nice. And on the FBS side, the college football playoff starts on Friday with Alabama taking on Oklahoma. That's the 8 p.m. Eastern game on ABC. Then Saturday, James Madison, Oregon, Tulane, Ole Miss, Miami, and Texas A&M. Round one will be there. We'll be covering all of that on our preview show this coming Thursday. Jace, do you have a preview for the preview show?
Ooh, that's a good question. We'll give you our picks. We'll reveal the flag for discussion official brackets. Make sure to get your picks in. Bowl Mania has started if you're in with us.
Yes.
Just game 1 and game 2 have been played. So you still have time to edit all the other games, but they're not. The games lock as they start is what I'm getting at. So feel free to mess around in the Bowl Mania with your picks. The bracket, as Farbo just mentioned, first game is Friday. Also, I believe your bracket will lock on Friday. So fill it out this week. We'll talk more about it on the Thursday show, but set some time aside to get your bracket dialed in, see if you can beat Farbo and I. We'll have our individual ones. We'll have a flag for discussion one. Sorry if we sweep off. I'm just kidding. We'll give it our best shot and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I try to be. We'll get the official flag for discussion bracket out there, but on my personal ones, I was like, I need to have one where I'm like biased and one that I'm somewhat analytical, so I don't look like an idiot in case my biased one doesn't work out. But as Jace mentioned, hey, check out our Twitter at F4Discussion. Both links are on our Twitter. You might have to scroll down a little bit. We might just need to pin that tweet, but both links to join the bracket challenge and Bowl Mania are on For Discussion. Follow us on TikTok at Flag the number 4 Discussion. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion spelled out. College football season, guys, the thing keeps going. And whenever you think it's over, whenever there's lulls or like dry spells in terms of news, just wait 5 minutes. Is what I always used to tell people in like who are going to the Pacific Northwest. Just wait 10 minutes. If you don't like the rain, it'll change. And it'll start raining again, but it'll change again. College football is going to be absolutely nuts for the next couple months. And we're getting ready to preview the college football playoff. Holidays, everybody. We had to mention that. Jace, put on another layer if you're going outside in the 4-degree weather.
Yeah, I'm gonna go hang out. I'm gonna go hang out on the beach. Frostbite speed run. See how fast I can get that.
Let me see for you. It's a cold 58 degrees here, but unhealthy. Our air quality is unhealthy for sensitive groups in Southern California. So, if the field is 87% humidity, which we never get in California either. So the weather's all kinds of jacked up. I've ranted too long. I've rambled too long. Make sure you are tuning in with us on Thursday for our preview show, College Football Playoff. We're going to have it all covered. From myself, Roberto McCarthy, my lovely partner, Jace Hatfield. This has been Flagged for Discussion.